Okay. So yeah, thank you for that intro, Jasmine. As she mentioned, I'm going to be talking about bridging education and implementation as a broader concept, and then also as it relates to my work. So a lot of this is going to be partially a summary of what I did this year, with lots of pictures. So, oh, okay. So I am based at the Mendocino County Fire Safe Council, as Jasmine mentioned, which does operate across the entirety of Mendocino County. I've been lucky enough to actually live at the Hopland Research and Extension Center, which many of you are familiar with. But like I said, I've been working all over Mendocino County for this service term. So a little background on the county. Mendocino County is a very large coastal and sparsely populated county. It's the ancestral territory of the Pomo, Yuki, and Caddo people. And today there are 11 tribes in Mendocino County with mixed federal recognition status. Another thing is that we, as you can see on the CAL FIRE prepared map on the far right, a large portion of the county, this is for state responsibility area, has a very high fire hazard severity rating, and that's not including our local responsibility area. So that means that historically, wildfires have been a huge part of life in Mendocino County and will continue to be, which is where the Mendocino County Fire Safe Council comes in. Our mission is to empower people to live resilient lives and coexist with these wildfires. Another thing to note is that Mendocino County, the middle map there, with just a bunch of mixed colors, is a vegetation cover map. So as you can see, we have a lot of different vegetation types, what my supervisor affectionately refers to as the Mendo mix. So we've got a wide range from redwood on the coast, our mixed conifer hardwood forests, oak woodlands, chaparral, pygmy forest, and beyond. And one of the reasons for all of this diversity, which is so awesome, is also our geographical diversity, and we have a lot of microclimates. So it can make planning for burning, in my case, prescribed burning, pretty complicated, but also really interesting, just as a preface for the next part. So again, to reiterate my overarching question, this question, I would say, did not necessarily come up until later in my service term, where I was kind of thinking about my two main projects as separate entities, and then in my mind thinking about how I could bridge them, and what are the connections between education, both youth and adult education, and implementation of practices that do make communities more wildfire resilient. So with that, what did I actually do? I had three kind of main tasks. The first one being working on our fire science education program, which I'll talk about each of these in depth in a minute, and what that means. The second one was supporting prescribed burning in whatever capacity that meant in Mendocino County, which meant I had a lot of flexibility within that role. And the third one that I want to talk about that wasn't officially part of my job description was just miscellaneous things that I've been thrown on or sort of taken an interest in and developed as a project of my own. All right, so beginning with the education project, this project is a collaboration between the Mendocino County Fire Safe Council and the Hopland Research and Extension Center, which is very convenient for my living situation. So in 2017, Hannah Bird, who most of you have also met, the community education specialist here at HREC, worked in collaboration with other educators to develop the fireworks curriculum, which is also like in partnership with the U.S. Forest Service, which is this really awesome, huge collection of fire science education materials and lessons for teachers. And so our adaptation here at HREC is the Oak Woodlands version of that curriculum, and we have adapted it into this 3-lesson structure that you see before you. The reason we kind of whittled it down to 3 lessons is basically for ease of convenience and actual reach to teachers across the county. And this is kind of the amount of lessons that we found have worked best. I'm saying I've only obviously played a 1 year part in this so far. But this has kind of been in development for a while, and done with other GrizzlyCorps fellows in the past. So our structure is first we go out to any school that signs up. We go out to their classroom. We do what we call a pre-visit lesson, using practices of trauma-informed education. So we discuss how to talk about fire, what words come up for students when we talk about fire, and a little history of fire in California. We were lucky enough this year to work with a documentarian named Ronnie Jo Draper, who's a Yurok tribal member, and she is the director and producer of a really awesome 30-minute documentary called Fire Tender, which we were able to secure the license for 5 years going forward. That showcases the work of Margot Robbins, who is a major player in bringing cultural fire back to California. So that's been really awesome. We're able to show a clip of that documentary to students. And then talk a little bit about fire ecology and why fire is an important part of our landscapes here in California. So after that, sometime later, the students come to HREC for a field trip, and we sort of split it into two sections, one of which is our fire physics section, which this year we kind of redeveloped to model a mock prescribed burn. So all the students get a job. And they do get to light real things on fire, but they are little boards about this big, and then they put matches in them to represent trees. So they're burning through different forest types and understanding fire behavior. And then the other half of that is what we like to call Meet a Tree, which is essentially learning about fire-adapted species. So they take a woodland walk through HREC, honestly, probably a walk a lot of you are familiar with, and learn about different native California tree species, and why they are important in our ecosystems and what makes them fire-adapted. And then finally, we follow up. We head back to their classrooms to talk about wildfire preparedness. We do a home hardening / school assessment activity where students walk around outside and identify potential hazards at their school, and come up with some low or no cost solutions to those potential hazards, so they can feel empowered to actually make those changes and maybe bring them to their school administrators. We talk about packing a go bag, and then finally they leave with this really awesome fireproof folder that has a bunch of fire preparedness goodies in it. Oh, and then I almost forgot the video. This video that I'm going to show was created by one of the parents of a student we had who is a drone media pilot. This was a program that was part of our fire science education program, but was kind of unique with this one school we partnered with to do a 2-night overnight fire science program where we kind of expanded it, looking at creek health, and we played more fire related games. So anyways, we don't have to watch the whole thing, but it's a really sweet video. And we'll also get a Maggie and Brenda cameo in there as well. So I'm going to play this before I talk about more about the program.
Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question, but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. We're gonna be looking at So take the photographs and still frames in your mind, hanging on a shelf in good health and good time. Tattoos and memories and dead skin on trial. Happy birthday! It was worth all the while. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life.
All right, we'll pause it there. We don't have to watch the whole thing. But it was very touching that the dad decided to just make this and send it to us out of the kindness of his heart. Okay, nope, not again, not again. Hang on. Okay, so On the left here, this is a table showing the program reach summary. So you can see I kind of divided the schools by region, by town, and then listing the school and the number of students attending. I also want to make the point that I realized I didn't say earlier, which is that this program is designed for middle school students. We were as flexible as possible with age groups to try and incorporate as many schools as we could and kind of work with the teachers that were passionate and excited about the program. Um, so talking about some successes, this was our largest student cohort to date. So we had 711 students come through the program across 16 different schools. We got really positive feedback from teachers, and we had a really great time doing curriculum restructuring. We also had, I think, I should have put the table up here, but I think 19 different adult volunteers who supported us on these field trip days where we're accommodating anywhere from, on large days, like 60 to 80 students at a time. And also we had a phenomenal teaching team. One of the reasons we were able to scale up so much is that we had 4 dedicated people working on this. So myself, Maggie, Brenda, and Hannah were all, this was all a part of our workload this year. And that made the program very cohesive and smooth. So that was really awesome. Some of the challenges we ran into definitely is reliance on volunteers. That's definitely a double-edged sword because of the fact that volunteers cancel. You just have high attrition rates and all of that. So trying to overcome that in the future, keeping our volunteer retention high and keeping people engaged is definitely going to be an obstacle for the future. With that phenomenal teaching team, it also means that that was 4 full-time people working on it, 3 of which were GrizzlyCorps and sort of rotate through every year. So trying to figure out that dynamic of keeping the program sustainable. And it is time intensive. This was pretty much my work for the entirety of February through the end of April. We had a field trip nearly every day of March, and the field trips are 3 hours with the students and then like an hour on each side of setup and cleanup. So it is a very time intensive program. But again, very positive feedback from teachers, and we were hearing really awesome things from students. So that was really great to hear. And so some goals in the future of the program are to ensure the longevity, whatever that looks like, however we can make it work. We're exploring other options for next year in terms of continuing to provide the same support, potentially limiting the number of students. Some schools brought 2 grades. Anyways, managing all of that was new to me and figuring out the logistics of a program. I'd done teaching before, but not necessarily the behind the scenes. So also new to me was creating a budget for the program and managing transportation. And another one of our goals is reaching target schools. We did have a few schools that canceled last minute that we really would have liked to get their student populations through the program, being in high fire risk areas and also underserved schools, even though we did get a lot of schools that were quite far from HREC, when in the past we've really only been able to have schools that are closer to HREC. And like I said, retain a good volunteer base into the future. So next, while I talk about all of the things that I did with burning, I'm going to let you look at all these pretty pictures of fire, just from a selection of things that I did this year. So generally, switching to my burning project, as I'm going to call it, the general brief was accelerate the pace of burning in Mendocino County, which could go a lot of different directions. So I started by identifying bottlenecks and, what are the issues? Why are people not burning as much in Mendocino County as in other counties? And to do that, I reached out to 9 PBA leaders across the state and did in-depth interviews with them, identified their prescribed burn association structures, where they were running into problems, and then maybe where that overlapped with us, and therefore trying to figure out my own role within our prescribed burn association here. I attended a lot of burns, as you can see. And I also had a number of other responsibilities that kind of slowly ramped up over the course of the year, like answering PBA calls and emails, managing the listserv, and taking on more of those PBA coordinator duties. We also had a lot of gear that nobody really knew where or what it was that was purchased on a grant a couple years ago. The grant is now over. So I inventoried our entire gear cache across the county. And sort of during my time in GrizzlyCorps, the Round Valley Prescribed Burn Association, which is way up north, has kind of been burgeoning and emerging. So I'm also supporting them as a part of my term. So, by pictures. Also a part of my burning work has been trainings and field work. I have no pictures from FFT2. I know that other GrizzlyCorps do. But that is our firefighter type 2 training that I took in the fall, like my second week. So totally got thrown into it, which was really awesome. Took that with Tara. I also did S219 and S212, which is a chainsaw class and a firing operations class. So obviously the far left photo is me during my chainsaw class with my proudest tree that I felled. I'm also going to play a couple more videos. This one is of a fire whirl that I saw on my first burn. So this gets to be like 20 feet tall, roughly. So that was really cool. It was a very exciting way to start this service year. And then in terms of field work, one of the big things that I was able to be involved in was a fire fuels mitigation project in the Jackson Demonstration State Forest, which is a redwood and mixed conifer forest that CAL FIRE actively manages and owns in the northwest part of the county. So the bottom photo and the right photo are me on some of the burns that they did in October, and I was doing like fire weather observation. This is also a video from those burns. This one's a little more tame than the fire whirl, but I think it's peaceful and nice. And then as a part of that as well, earlier this year, so kind of in March-ish timeframe, I was able to go back and help with some of the plot data collection post-fire, so learning more about forestry and sort of that process. Okay, nope. Should have set that up differently. Another part of my burning project was creating educational materials and doing website updates. So on the bottom two photos here, this is part of a web page I created on our MCFSC website about prescribed burning. And as a part of that, in collaboration with Joaquin, who's a former GrizzlyCorps and now works for UCA&R Fire Network, created these burn permitting guides for both pile burning and broadcast burning for the county. Also created these brochures for wildfire smoke. And after meeting with our air quality district and determining that there was kind of a lack of educational material for people who are pile burners, but not broadcast burners about smoke management, created this brochure in collaboration with them. Also updated the PBA webpage and created these two documents that you see on the top, kind of outlining what our procedures are, what the structure is, and what the appropriate expectations are for landowners. Since everyone in our PBA is volunteer, except for me, and they are all extremely busy. And so kind of being able to work within that framework and making landowners aware of what their responsibilities are when burning with the PBA. So lastly, these are sort of I don't really know where these kind of fit in. They're definitely related to these projects, but I'm going to call them miscellaneous. Lots of mapping. I did a lot of mapping this year. I've done GIS in the past, but I definitely had to brush my skills off. So this map in particular is part of the governor's exemption application process to waive CEQA. And I prepared this for the Round Valley Prescribed Burn Association. On the bottom there, you see this like infographic that I created when I was in CalNat as a part of my capstone project. And this was looking at a researcher named Valerie Evener, who does grassland disturbance regimes research here. Ooh, that's a mouthful. Here at HREC, who came and talked for our class, and I also got to drop in and see her speak at the California Native Grassland Association. And I just thought her work was really interesting and more people should know about it. So I created this infographic for my capstone project. Doing random outreach stuff and talking to the community has been a really awesome part of my work as well. So doing some tabling. This photo of me in the middle from the first week of my GrizzlyCorps term was at a community work party we had on a landowner's property to kind of rehabilitate an old fire break that had been created. And then finally, and more recently, I've been working on this roadside clearing fuels monitoring project. So I created this survey to help us determine into the future what our maintenance regimes on our roadside clearing projects should be. So a big part of a lot of Fire Safe Council's work, and a lot of wildfire mitigation work generally, are these roadside fuels clearing projects, which are done because a lot of wildfires are started by roadside ignitions. So kind of thinning that vegetation along the road on the right of way is really important. But as we all know, vegetation is plants and plants grow back. So figuring out how often do we actually need to maintain these fuel breaks, and how do we do it, and what's the best way to monitor for that? So this is kind of in the early phase, and it'll continue to be developed, but this is my initial survey that I've come up with and have kind of thrown myself into probably within the last month. And all of this work, I'm happy to say, is going to be continuing, which is really exciting. I am being hired on by my host site, and we'll continue doing this same type of work for at least another year, which is really awesome. And all of that, okay. Come on. Okay, all of that brings us back to our question of how do we bridge education and implementation? And specifically in this field, what actionable steps are to be taken to cultivate a reciprocal and responsible relationship with fire? And the two conclusions that are very much in progress that I have drawn so far, and I'm sure these will continue to change, are capacity building at the forefront of community education. There were a lot of times throughout my service year where I was really excited to learn something and go out and do it myself. And I've been reminded multiple times, like, that's great, but that's not valuable if it's just one person who knows how to do this work, and not training community members to kind of train each other and build capacity within the community. So kind of learning how to come at community education from a capacity building mindset within those groups, as opposed to kind of a top-down mindset. And then invested time and interest. I'm obviously not the first person to say this by any means whatsoever. But seeing the fruits of those relationships that I have built with different community members over the course of the year, and living in a rural area now, running into people at the grocery store or on the street and being able to say hi and talk about my work and what I'm doing and being a representative has been really amazing. So with that, thank you. And yeah, to echo Petra's sentiments as well, thank you very much to the entire GrizzlyCorps team, and all of the fellows. It's been a really great year. So yeah.